Hi, everybody. Thanks for joining. Oh, I see some more people are joining. Um, Thanks for coming today. Appreciate it for sure. Uh, I'm Dave Balcar. I'm a security strategist here at VMware. Today, we're going to be talking about insider threats, and I'll share some stories as well. So I'll give you a little bit about me. My background is actually around pen testing, IR, and forensics. I've worked a lot of insider threat cases with law enforcement over the years. And so if you have any questions during the thing, feel free to take yourself off mute, ask away. If not, we can get them at the end. I just can't see chat while I'm presenting. There's my Twitter address. You can always tweet me or you can send me an email. I send out security related info and maybe some funny cat videos here and there for sure. So let's talk about the threat landscape. You know, the threat landscape around insider threats is a little different than your traditional threats out there, but they're all after the same thing for the most part. So we'll definitely talk about that. And if you ever need help, there's always Paul Blart for sure. So here's I'm pretty my Stig, I guess, is taking funny pictures of security. I took this picture last year. I was giving a keynote speech, and I get in the elevator and I see this tag here. It says, insert the key to get to your floor. All the floors were locked down, but that key that was just hanging there permanently worked on every single floor. I did go tell the manager, and he says, no, well, we just have it there because people either forget their key or they leave it in their pocket or they're carrying stuff just to make it easier for them. I think that's a big insider threat faux pas for sure. Here's a good insider threat to fool your boss. Hopefully your boss doesn't have a camera sitting out his door. Looking at everybody, but that will definitely that's a good defense against the boss insider threat. This is definitely insider threat if you're trying to put out a fire. This was sent to me by a buddy of mine. I was actually flying back from Brazil, and when I landed, this was on my phone, and he took this picture. He was going to a business meeting. It was like on the third floor of a high-rise building. I'm not sure exactly how that happened, but it'd be really tough to put that fire out. This is your network protected by Cisco. So this is definitely not what you want to have happen on your server room for sure. Both these pictures were sent to me, and it's just funny. The one on the right's funny because that was actually at a security conference. Not only is the door open, but they had the key, the combination to the lock taped to it. It cracks me up every time I see those, for sure. We always talk about the three-letter agencies that are listening to us. I guess I don't want to plug my phone in and just make it that much easier for them, huh? Sure. So what does Wikipedia say? Wikipedia says insider threats and malicious threat. Hello? Heard somebody. All right. It said, basically insider threats can come from employees, former employees, contractors, business associates, all this thing. I do a lot of social engineering, so I become the insider threat very quickly. And the threats can be everything from fraud, confidential information, could be money if I'm going after banks. And usually when I go after banks, I'm not going after the money, I'm going after the computer systems, which control all the money. So, and a lot of IP, I've done quite a few IP theft as well, and I'll probably talk about that one in just a few minutes. I will say, if you never read The Art of War, I do put this in almost all my presentations because I think it's really valuable. The biggest takeaway here is if you know yourself but not the enemy, for every victory gained, you also suffer defeat. And it really is true, right? So if you know your organization, you know how everything runs, but you don't know the attacker or the attack methods, and what could they possibly go after? What's my IP? Where do I have my confidential information? Do I store credit card numbers? Do I store accounting information? All this different stuff. And if I don't know the who, what, when, where of who's accessing this, that could be a really problem. So you definitely want to take that into consideration. So what does Hollywood say? Um, Anybody want to take a guess what this guy was doing? You can throw it in the chat if you want. I'll sit here and look at the chat for a second. What do you think he was doing? You didn't know this was audience participation, did you? Anybody?
Well, I could see he was playing a game on one computer.
He was. This is from the movie Jurassic Park, and he was actually trying to commit IP theft. He was trying
Oh,
to steal. He was trying to steal the dinosaur DNA, right? So he was trying to do IP theft. What about this guy? What do you think this guy was trying to do? And the prize definitely goes to John. John definitely did it. A hacktivist. Okay, so that was Will. A hacktivist. That's good. That wasn't his total crime. What he was really trying to do was sabotage. If you remember the series, he was actually trying to blow up all the data, the backup data. So they already took the system down, right? Evil Corp, but they wanted to make sure that it could never come back. So it was really sabotage. They were trying to sabotage all the backups around the country. That would be an awesome trivia question. How many backup sites did they have? That would be a good trivia question. What about this guy? What do you think this guy was trying to do? See if Will or John or somebody can come up with that one, or somebody else. Salami attack. That's pretty funny. Oh, back in the company. Yeah, yeah, yep, for sure. He was trying to commit fraud. Remember, he was trying to do the Superman 3 fraud where they added zero point 0.02 cents onto every single transaction and then force it to go into their bank account. So he was trying to do fraud. What about this guy? What do you think this guy was trying to do? Whistleblower. All right, Will, that was quick. Yep. Okay. Anybody else? Anybody agree or disagree with that? I will preface this. I was in the U.S. military, so I have my own theories here that we can always discuss offline. But whistleblower is good. So was he trying to do espionage, or was he a whistleblower? So it just depends on what side of the fence you're looking at. Was he committing espionage by taking all those secrets and posting them out there? Or was he a whistleblower? So I definitely have my own thoughts on that, but that's for another conversation. So I have this tweet from I don't know a couple years ago now. It was a suspicious daughter board. This daughter board right here uh, was in a this was a Chinese sold Cisco gear, right? They sold a couple hundred of these, and that's what was inside of it. Anybody want to take a guess what that was used for? And could you ever find it? That's the next thing. Oh, we got some more people. Key logging, yep. That's a good guess for sure. What this device was actually trying to do was an espionage device, and it could reroute the traffic to a site in China. So yeah, bad stuff. Now, how many people could find this? Now, I know being a security researcher, I do work for companies. They send me equipment and they hire me to do reverse engineering and to look for this kind of stuff and to, find vulnerabilities in their stuff. So I'm constantly getting stuff here at the house to do that. But most companies would not tear apart their switch. They were just like, oh, nope, great, new hardware, throw it in. It's very difficult. I mean, Supermicro got hit with this about a year and a half ago. Amazon, Google, Apple were all implicated in that, where it was basically one chip the size of a grain of rice. That was another espionage device. It was disputed and then verified, then disputed again. So it kind of went back and forth, but it's definitely something that's difficult to find for sure. Now, in the news, we hear about all this crazy stuff, whether it's rare fileless malware or the next 0 day affecting Android phones, or this hacker releases an unpatchable jailbreak for iOS. So it doesn't matter what device you are, if you're a phone or an Android, um, we keep all our company stuff on there, company emails, company data. You could be downloading sales stuff. Um, and if you've got these flaws out there, you can see a lot of journalists um, and activists have been attacked over the years from different countries. Iran has gone after quite a few of their dissidents that talk bad about them, and they go and try to hack their phones so they can get to their data and see where they are, and try to get evidence to try to put them in jail for whatever crime they could possibly come up with. It's a never-ending battle for sure. And how do companies respond to stuff like this? So it doesn't matter that if it's an insider, but if I have an outside person hacking my stuff and then I go inside, well, now they're the insider now, so it makes it really, really difficult. So a few more things. So definitely in the news, here's a former IT admin. He left a backdoor account, and what's funny about this story, this is from like 3 years ago, he accessed his company's network over 700 times during a 1 year period. That means, and I'm not great at math, but that's 2.3 times per day. That means he didn't take off for Christmas, Groundhog Day, nothing. And it's like, what the heck was he doing every single day getting into this network through his backdoor account? But it also put the blame on the IT staff after he left, that they never saw all this unauthorized access. How many times do we have you leave a company, and how long does it take them to get your ID removed or delete your password or whatnot? And how many systems? The hardest one that I ever worked on was a school district. They let their admin go for whatever reason, so they brought us in to go through all of their systems and make sure, because he had access to everything, and it was 156 different systems he had access to, whether that was applications, firewalls, switches, VPNs, you name it. And he had multiple accounts across all of this stuff that we had to clean up. It took like about 3 days with about four of us working on it nonstop to try to get it out of there. It was a cluster, to say the least. You definitely don't want to see this. Here's a former Microsoft engineer. He gets prison for writing some ransomware a couple years ago. So he had insider knowledge of how Microsoft does stuff, right? So it just made it that much easier for him, which is bad. It's pretty rare to hear something like that. Here's a terminated. This one's bad. This is a terminated employee hacks his way back into his network, and he compromised over 1,000 servers. And he faced over 10 years in prison. I need to go back and see exactly what he got. I know he did get prison for some of it, and that was back in 2009. So this has been going on for a long time. It's not something new, that we've been dealing with the insider threat. This one's pretty new. This is an inside job. This is a clinic. They actually used their mobile phone, and they were taking pictures of patient data and sending it to somebody else and selling it. So how do you catch that? That's extremely difficult to catch because it's just a camera, right? But that's part of that. Who has access to what? So I guess the way to catch them would have been, why are they accessing a bunch of different people's data constantly? So I've worked some VIP cases at hospitals where you've got celebrities and dignitaries and stuff like that, where and usually when they go to the hospital and stuff, they don't use their real name and stuff like that. Because they'll have people that are trying to get to their data and try to sell it. This is not good. This is a security company. They actually sold their customer data info, one employee, not the company itself, to a tech support scammers. You get these people call you up and says, "Oh yeah, your stuff's got viruses. Here, let me log in remotely and take over, and I'll fix this for you." And all they do is lock you out and blackmail you for money. Bad stuff. What about DLP? Does DLP solve this problem? Well, not really. This company makes DLP software. They use DLP software, and they actually sued 4 of their former employees for stealing a bunch of company data when they walked out the door. And I mean, they saw it. They saw them plug the USB drives in, and it wasn't until after they left a couple months, and then they said, "Oh, well, we better go after these people because they did steal data." What about this great lady? She was an NSA contractor. She was leaking secrets. She was actually taking printouts. She would print out, whatever secret information. She would print it, take it to a copy machine, make a copy of it, and then she would give it to reporters or whoever else. A couple years ago, and she's actually still in jail, as last I checked, for sure. That can get real serious, especially when you're working for like the NSA or something. What about this guy? And I know not Steve Harvey, but this is a rogue system admin. He shut down all these servers and deletes all the core files the day he was fired. I like this. He terminated an employee, created a backdoor disguised in an office printer, and it just wreaked havoc across the network. It's like, how do you protect yourself around that? That's why, a lot of people have said, oh, we'll let people go on Friday or even a Monday. There's all kinds of theories on how to do stuff, or, make sure that people aren't super disgruntled, for sure, because they'll definitely do a lot of damage when they go out the door. So a little story here. One of the cases I worked years ago involves the theft of intellectual property. Okay, so this particular company, it's a financial company. They spend a lot of time. They were buying multiple other different finance companies in this multi-billion-dollar company. And I got a call from a friend of mine and says, hey, I got a customer. Their CIO is worried that they've got an insider threat that's selling information. And I was like, okay, yep, we can work on that. He got my phone. He called me. I talked to him for a few minutes, and he says, well, Dave, I'm calling you from a burner phone because I don't want people to know, because I think my phone's compromised, my email's compromised, everything. I said, okay, that's fine. He goes, well, hey, I want to meet you at such and such parking lot at like 1 o'clock in the morning. And I'm from Texas, and I've been in this field for a long time, and I'm ex-military. Trust me, I did check this guy out. I did have a bodyguard with me just in case that night, but it was on the up and up. He was very scared, and he was scared to call law enforcement because he didn't know this other person that possibly was involved knew law enforcement too, so they didn't want to get it back to him. So we took on the case. We actually went into their building around 3 o'clock in the morning a couple days later. We put spyware on several machines of several of the suspects, and we waited. And then so the very next morning at like 8 o'clock in the morning, I get a phone call at the hotel saying, hey, can you please get over here right away? Because what we did was it would take screenshots and keystrokes from these several machines that we did. And one machine popped up literally at 8 o'clock in the morning, and only the CIO could view the data. So no one else. It was encrypted. He was the only one that had the password to see it, which was good for liability reasons. And so he calls us into his office. The CFO is in there, the attorney's in there, and the CIO's in there. And we start going through the screenshots of this person. And I said, yep, that's really, really bad. They have an officer. They go pull him out of his desk and take him downstairs to a conference room where they're waiting on other law enforcement. In the meantime, I'm going through the logs trying to see exactly what he did. Well, this was the system administrator. He'd been at the company for 9 years, and he went to their barbecues. He knew the CIO really well. He knew his family. Everything was great. But he decided when he got to a certain point, he decided to start selling that confidential information of bids of what they're bidding on other companies. Hey, we're thinking about paying $10 million for such and such. But he was selling that to a third party and making money. Now, the way we caught him, once we start looking at his machine, he literally would come in every morning, open up his email, and he had 40 email accounts open, and he would just browse the emails and start copying them off to a USB drive. Now, he was very, very suspicious. He looked at his machine, and he was looking in the logs when because we had to reboot his machine, cover our tracks, And he starts looking at it, so much to the fact that he took a break, and we asked somebody next that's outside his office. He actually went to other desks in front of him to see if those computers had gotten powered off. So we simulated basically a power failure in the building, and so we turned off a bunch of computers around his desk just in case. And thank God we did, because he definitely checked. And then he goes back to his computer. He checks all the logs, the app log, the sys log. He wants to see if anything's been tampered with on his computer. Luckily, our stuff's very sophisticated, so he did not find the spyware that we had installed. And once we had all that evidence for them, and needless to say, he went to jail for about 6.5 years for selling that information. Anyone take a guess at how much money he made on about an 8-month period selling that information? He sold it at, they were buying, in that time they were buying 11 companies, and he sold information on, at least that we know of, at least 7. Anybody want to take a guess on how much he made?
20,000.
20,000. Wow. Okay, that's not bad. It's pretty close. Pretty close. That's a good guess. Anybody else? Bueller? Millions? God, we always wish. None of these people make millions of dollars doing this. It's so crazy. The actual price was $43,000. That's what he made. So not only did he lose that, he got a big fine plus jail time. Yeah, bad story for him. It's very rare that in all the years I've done insider threat stuff, it's very rare that I'm catching IT staff. It's normally somebody else by a huge margin. I mean, it's very rare. I've got less than probably 6 or 7 that have been in the IT environment. Everybody else has been outside the IT environment. A few more. Here's another administrator. He got caused $800,000 in damage. This was in May, just not too recently. It was another former IT administrator, which is kind of funny. I keep seeing these. These are the ones that get reported, because a lot of these cases don't get reported. So they either just fire the employee, they say don't come back here again, so they never take them to court. These they definitely do, but it's kind of interesting why some of those are not a thing. This one's interesting. So if you like Tesla, this is a reassigned Tesla employee. Didn't really hack back in the company. It's kind of the wrong terminology. But he was mad. He was trying to get back in, and then he got caught, and all of a sudden he claims, oh, I'm a whistleblower. And that's a huge problem. It's like, well, how do we prove that he's not a whistleblower? So there was definitely stuff that Tesla had on the books on him that said, no, he was definitely just pissed off about something, like not getting a promotion or something, and didn't like the way things were going, so he decided to steal all this information. But they had some other evidence against him as well. Here's my honorable mention insider threat for the day. This is an employee that outsourced his job to China. This is great because the company he worked, he had RSA tokens. So what he would do is he would FedEx the RSA token, so to get into a VPN to China for this guy he was paying, and he would go to work every day and literally watch cat videos on YouTube and browse eBay all day while somebody else did all his work, which was just crazy. And he paid the Chinese firm that he was doing this $50,000 annually. So a little bit less than half his salary, or I guess he said a fifth of his 6-figure salary. So that's kind of crazy to do that. And it took them a long time to get caught. I think it was a year or so before he got caught too. The security team goes, why are we getting VPN connections from China? So he should have told the people to, do a proxy through a US VPN provider, so it wouldn't look so bad, but they did. Here's Google. I know these guys were smiling then, but they're definitely not smiling now. Google, this former engineer, stole 14,107 files. How do we know that? It was funny because, I work for Carbon Black. Google actually testified in court. They used 3 different tools, 2 of their own internal tools that they wrote themselves, and they used Carbon Black on all their computers. That's how we actually were able to find this for them, and that's how they found it. We could tell them exactly what USB drive it was, what computer it was, and how many files were stolen. Um, so we already know the CEO of Uber got ousted, and Anthony Lewski got charged multiple times for selling trade secrets from them. Crazy stuff. I don't understand why these people think they can do that. And this is my best insider threat for the day. Is just checking time. This man hacks the jail computer network to get his friend released early. I think it's hilarious. I wish they would have not. They went to his house to arrest him. I really wish they would have let him come to the jail to get his friend out, and then just put him right back in jail. That would have been even more funny to do. But it's crazy what people will do. So definitely insider threats pose the biggest security risk. According to the study, over 90% of IT and security professionals feel vulnerable to insider threats. And when I talk to CIOs and CISOs and IT directors and stuff, and IT admins, same thing. They go, man, what do we do? We don't really have anything to help us, with insider threats or even zero-day nation-state attacks, which are really bad. And it's funny, 75% believe the biggest risk lie in cloud applications like file storage, like your Dropbox, all that stuff, your email solutions. It's crazy. And now with the whole pandemic stuff, everybody's using, SaaS-based or cloud-based apps one way or another. And what is the logging? How do I get that data out of those to see, what's being checked in and checked out and used? It's a huge security hole. And just speaking of that, a lot of these SaaS companies won't let you perform security testing against their stuff. They go, nope, it's against our term of service. We'll certify that it's secure. It's really crazy that people aren't allowed to do that. And some of them, they don't have those logs. They don't have that information to even give you. It's like, okay, who was accessing this file from where, from what IP, blah, 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 and be able to store that information. So if something does happen, you can go and quickly find it and do something about it. This is the Code 42 data exposure report last year. And it's funny, 70% basically said security leaders say DLP cannot stop insider threat. And I totally agree. DLP, our data loss prevention software, is very hard to configure, very hard to get to a point where you are, and there's so many ways around it. I can tell you when I do pen testing that I know there's DLP, I always circumvent it. It's trivial with a little bit of knowledge to get around DLP solutions for sure. And you can see here 2/3, 69% organization says they were breached due to an insider threat and confirmed they had a prevention in place, some type of DLP at the time of breach. Look at McAfee, same thing. They had it in place at the same time, and they couldn't prevent it and let it happen as well. So there's definitely room for improvement. And this one's just really recent here, that 60% of insider threats involve employees planning to leave. Usually that, I think it's 2 weeks to 2 months time frame, that they're either going to steal the data. And generally it's not, because I've worked several of those where they were caught and they weren't stealing data to sell it or to give it to their new employer. They just either just did it just to do it. It's like, well, I did this data, I did all this work, I want to hold on to it, blah, blah, blah. Maybe I can use it later for something, but it's kind of crazy. If you look at some of the stats, most of them involve exfil of sensitive data, privilege misuse, data aggregation, and infrastructure sabotage, which is always bad. I've worked several of those, and they have not been pretty, to say the least. To sure. So what are we missing? We've got insufficient data protection strategies and solutions across the board. We got the increasing number of devices with access to sensitive data. That's a huge one. The proliferation of sensitive data moving outside the firewall, especially on mobile devices, especially phones and tablets. You've got a lot of employees, contractors, and partners accessing the same data. How do we kind of rein that in? Greater complexity can be an if-then. Sometimes it's more complex, but lately we've just had to blast and get people online, and sometimes security was definitely put at the back burner for that. And definitely the increasing use of cloud apps. One thing I could say here is I need to add this as a big disclaimer across it is what are we really missing? We're really missing the who, what, when, where, and dealing with like encryption. I cannot stress this enough. I'm a big advocate. My computer's behind me, my laptop, everything's encrypted. So if I turn that computer off, everything goes. It's all encrypted on disk. Um, all your sensitive data should be encrypted at rest. So even if someone does steal it, they can't use it. There's definitely technologies with some of the SaaS apps and your Office apps where if they take a file or something, you can have beacons in them so you know that this person took this file because it talks back, especially if they have internet access. Um, it does get complicated, but you have to think of it from all different angles. And I always tell people start at your intellectual property, start at what you're trying to protect the most, and then work your way out for sure. So how do we compare to Europe? Not so good, according to this. The insider threat in Europe is actually because the GDPR is driving down. They said it was actually fell 8% in the last 12 months. That's in 2018. I haven't seen an updated study yet, but I'd be curious to see what that could be. But it says at the same time, the U.S. has grown by 8% to an 80% by the ClearSwift data security company did this study of where 80% of it it's gone up, right? It's funny that the data suggests the EU countries are more aware of the insider threat. I do a lot of business over there, and I can definitely see that for sure. They're definitely a lot more harder to grant access to stuff. That's for sure. They seem to guard their stuff even more for sure. So I'll leave you with Dave's top 10. We'll have plenty of time for questions here in a second, maybe another story. Always treat your network as hostile. Always assume that it's breached. Be that threat hunter. Definitely no one is immune to malware infection. Have your post-breach strategy ready. So what am I going to do after we've been breached? Because we know someone's going to get in eventually. Something's going to be misconfigured. Something's going to be left open somehow, some way. So how do we respond to it as quickly as we can? Don't forget about the insider threat. I see a lot of companies still do. They say, oh, we're just protecting this from attackers. Not necessarily everything could be attacker. Always do number 2. I know this is a family show. We'll come back to that one. Know your network. I can't stress this enough. Is if you don't know your network, I've done plenty of network assessments and stuff or pen tests, and they'll ask me, Dave, can you find us rogue access points? And it's amazing how many employees have brought in a little Netgear box or a Linksys box because, the company doesn't give us a Wi-Fi or it's slow because I have to use a VPN and log in. I'll just plug in the network and boom, now I've got free wireless. It's amazing how many of those boxes I found. Log everything and have unfiltered data. This is huge so you can see it. I believe in the 30, 60, 90 rule, basically 30 days of all the metadata. So all my DNS logs, all my IP traffic, as far as the metadata, not just a clone of everything. That's just impossible to keep up. But definitely have my logins, anything that's going on, any changes that are going on, and what processes are running from who, what, when, where. Train your security staff. Again, big proponent of sending people to training, train them, with doing red teaming, blue teaming, switch the teams around to get them. That's really, really important. Number 3, security awareness for everybody, and not your click. Hey, I'm security aware. HR is happy, but really make it entertaining. I gave a talk yesterday, and I told this story, so I'll tell it again. And I did this job for this company, and they had a problem with tailgaters. Even though they had a security desk there, but they had like 4 or 5 of these, turnstiles where you scan your card and go in. And they had a problem with tailgaters, and they knew it. So we set up a little test. I was real close by, and I had one of my coworkers try to tailgate. And for every person that stopped us tailgating, we gave them a $25 Starbucks card. And it was funny. After an hour, one of the IT guys came down and says, Dave, people are posting this and texting everybody to not let people tailgate because people are starting to go, hey, I got a Starbucks gift card. Even though we stayed around for another 3 hours or so, we still got more people that let us tailgate. I guess the text did make it to everybody. And here's number two, from number seven. Patch, patch, patch. I can't stress that enough. And refer back to number seven. So if you're into the programming, you know this is an infinite loop to get everybody staying secure. And I'm sorry, but today Ryan Reynolds was not available. I hope you like my jokes, but I'll definitely work on those. I want to thank everybody for coming today and sitting in on my session about insider threats. Again, I'm from VMware Carbon Black, and our vision is really a world safe from cyber attacks. And I'd love to answer. We got some time, so I'd love to answer any questions. I'll flip back over to the chat so I can see the chat, or you can just take yourself off mute. This is a quiet group. Where is everyone located today?
Hey, Dave, in regards to higher education, is there anything that sticks out from a security perspective that they should be aware of, especially as many students are remote?
Um, the biggest thing, is student data, right? How am I protecting my student data? I talked about this yesterday, another talk about an Australian university that got breached, and they stole all the student data from 200,000 students, and they took everything. They took passport numbers, tax records, or tax ID numbers, all of this miscellaneous data that they really didn't need. So, and I always question that, even in higher ed, it's like, why are y'all keeping this information? You don't need it, and it's too valuable of information. It opens yourself up to too much liability. Now on to the point where you've got everyone working online. There was a case in Miami just in the last 2 weeks where a student did 8 DDoS attacks against their online learning system. And that's another thing, and that takes me back to, hey, am I looking at these logs? Am I looking at, who's accessing it and when they're accessing it? Are they accessing it from home, or are they accessing it from, some other country? That kind of stuff is pretty valuable, and it really comes down to, I don't see a lot of student stuff. I've definitely seen, students, try to get intellectual property and take it, or it's usually taking down the network more than anything that we see. But yeah, I would just be more conscious around, the systems and, that IP of student data, and how do we protect that? Thanks for the question. I think we still got 10 minutes. Anyone else? Gregor, I'm doing well. Thank you. Thank you. That's funny. Even with one good eye. Funny story. I just had eye surgery last week, and I go back in for my other eye next week. So, yeah, it's going well. I can see like really good with my right eye, and my left eye is really fuzzy still until I can get that fixed. So, I'm definitely looking forward to that next week. And I've done four of these presentations this week doing that. Thanks, Brenda. Thanks. Appreciate the comment. We got a couple more minutes. I'll stay on for a couple minutes if anybody has any other questions, want to hear more stories. Oh, during COVID. I'm doing good during COVID. I work from home anyways, but I am used to traveling quite a bit. 90% of my job is traveling around the world and giving presentations and talking to customers and really being in the security community. So that's been really tough. Um, Having to do having now I've added 3 jobs, not only taking care of everything at the house, homeschooling. I have a junior in high school, trying to help him, and it definitely and I definitely feel for everybody out there. The respect for teachers is just immense. That's for sure. But other than that, yeah, we're doing good. We're doing good. Thanks for asking. I'm up here in my basement in New Hampshire. With the presentation up. But do you have? I have heard of Stuxnet for sure. I did a lot of research on that. I was one of the researchers on that. It's a really yes, it's definitely a huge example of a cyber attack. So Stuxnet was a nation-state attack for everyone who doesn't know what that is against Iranian nuclear complex. It was the first time in history that 4 zero-day exploits were used in the wild. Normally, attackers will only use 1 0 day. I've seen a couple that have used 2 because of what they were trying to get into, but to use 4, these attackers were determined they were going to get in at any cost. The biggest thing with Stuxnet, basically, I still have a copy of it here. I have it in my lab. It's funny. I've got one USB. I have red tape around it, and I write Stuxnet on it, so I know that's my Stuxnet research drive. Basically, every time you stick it in, it reinfects the USB and uploads data to it. That's how they were able to cross air gap networks. It was basically a scientist walked in, took a USB from, let's say, a nation state, and plugged it into the air gap network to try to disrupt the centrifuges. So it was basically telling the screen, hey, it's spinning at 2,000 RPMs when it's actually spinning at 400, or it would spin at 10,000. And they kept varying it to ruin the centrifuges. And I think they took out a couple thousand, I think was what they estimated. So yeah, good question. Anyone else? On Cisco certifications, how do they relate to cybersecurity? I understand different cases. Class up IP are used as well as bits. Okay, so the question, if you didn't read the chat, basically is what's my opinion on Cisco certification and how they relate to cybersecurity? I can definitely talk about that. Then we ask about IP addresses and what makes an IP address more secure. Inherently, IP addresses aren't secure, right? It's like an address to your house, right? You're going to have that address. Everyone can see it. You got to communicate from one place to another. The biggest thing is encryption. If you encrypt the data inside, think of an IP address as a school bus, and all the kids on the bus are part of the IP packet. Well, just if you have it all encrypted, then you don't know who's on the bus. So it doesn't matter where the bus goes, you don't know what's going there. That's huge. So I'm huge about securing IP addresses for sure. As far as Cisco certifications, it's not that it's inherently, oh, this is great for security, but it's the knowledge of how networks work. And that's a lot of people ask me, Dave, how did you get started pen testing? I started from the ground up. I know multiple operating systems. I know basically everything there is to know about networking. I mean, that takes key because if I know how stuff works, I know how to break it. I can look for those vulnerabilities for sure, and that's huge. And so I believe in those kind of certifications where you get that baseline of that knowledge, because you just can't go in and go, oh, yep, I can pen test. That's it's just not going to work. So you might be learn how to pen test a web application, but if you don't know how the IP traffic is working and how it's routed, and whatever if it's got a VLAN tag and all these crazy things, that's going to be extremely hard. So it would make your job a huge benefit, even if you're not pursuing basically to do networking or infrastructure. It's a great background to have. I studied a lot of Cisco networking and just networking in general, not just from some Cisco, but yeah. I hope that answers your question. And remember, all certifications, whether they're like CEH or really the only one is that the big one is the offensive security one from the got people that make the Kali Linux is a pen testing tool distribution. That one is very, very, very dedicated just to cybersecurity for sure. Oh, you're welcome, Matthew, for sure. Anything else? I think we got 2 minutes. And I don't know, Gregory's sitting on with his pencil going, I need to ask Dave a question. I just know I need to do that. That's awesome. Uh, Boss of the house, thank you. Thank you. Appreciate it. Well, everybody, I can't think of anything else. Awesome. Well, if anybody else has anything, you've got my email address. If you like a copy of the presentation, just let the organizers know. We'll get them a copy of the presentation. Be happy to do that for you. Everybody have a great rest of your Friday and a great weekend. Thank y'all so much for attending today.